Well, happy Tuesday, everybody.
Happy Tuesday to you.
It's been a month.
When you were saying that,
It's
it's
been a
kind of
month.
wild that it's been a month since we have been in the same
In the broadcast booth together.
broadcast booth together.
Yep.
Barely in the same building together in the past month.
So
But
I was gone for 2 weeks, but missed one Sunday. Same with you.
Mm-hmm.
We had one overlap Sunday,
we kind of did the tag team.
and we probably talked for all of 10 minutes between
Yes,
that.
we did take a bit of time. Like
Yeah.
church finished up, and we took a moment.
And
to,
that was
like,
it
Chat
for a month,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so I have some questions for you about vacation.
Yes.
True or false, you were in Colorado?
I was in Colorado.
Okay.
Yes, I was gonna. You know what? I was gonna make some pictures because everybody loves after a vacation.
See a little-
come and
see a
do
few-
the slideshow.
That's
You know,
right.
come and see my slideshow.
And I did that here.
You should.
at-
Yeah, I
at
should have
broadcast.
done that. But
So people
yes.
are saying to me that you flew a private jet to Aspen, and then you spent 2 weeks at the 5-star Hotel Jerome right on the main drag in. Is that true?
Yeah. No, that's not true.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Just-
did not get to do that.
Okay.
No, we were in Estes Park actually. So
Estes Park.
yes.
So,
Yes.
so if you're not familiar with Estes Park, it is one of the gateways to the Rocky Mountain National.
Very good. I know you've spent a fair amount of time there, and you've spent some time in the Aspen area as well, like Maroon Bells
so,
and all of that.
Yeah, my son has family in Aspen, and so
okay.
I've been there several times. Not many, like 3 or 4 times. But I did when I was in seminary. I did a gig up at Meeker Park, and Meeker Park
Meeker Park.
sits right above Estes Park.
Really?
So just almost, if I think it's just almost due south, and there's one big climb out of Estes Park if you're going to go mountain roads.
Yeah.
And about 20 miles, 15 miles, you're in this little town. It's not even a town. It's just Meeker Park. There's a
Yeah.
post office. And so I spent 2 weeks doing youth programming up there 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And so in doing that, I had to get away in the afternoon, so I drove into Estes Park.
Go to Estes.
So there was a couple of weeks where I
Yes.
was kind of dinging around, and then Rachel and I were in Denver for a conference, a dozen years ago.
Okay.
And we had an afternoon off, and so I said, let's go to Boulder, and then after Boulder, let's go over to Estes Park for the day.
Park.
So we drove and
So yeah,
went
you
over
have
there.
some familiarity with that
A little
entire
bit,
area.
yeah. And
yeah.
for the rest of you, one of the landmarks in town is a hotel called the Stanley.
Drove by that a number of times.
Did
yeah.
it scare you?
It did not scare me. I don't think it was a neat little thing. I mean, so that's where so it's where Stephen King went to write.
Yes.
Is that
and,
correct?
And some people,
I didn't
it
tour
wasn't
it,
in the
but-
movie, The Shining,
Yes.
but folks think that he drew inspiration from being at the Stanley for
I know
that.
I've heard that story that he drew
Yeah.
inspiration
Yeah.
from.
And I've been in the lobby, and it's an old Victorian hotel. It's beautiful. And I've seen elk literally grazing in the front yard.
There are elk in Estes Park.
There's a lot of elk up
There
in
are a lot of elk in Estes Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to be, they're not pettable, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, they're
Do not
it's-
pet the
it's
elk.
Not Disneyland, right?
Yeah.
Like you're
it's
not
like
supposed
don't
to,
go
like,
pet the bison. Don't do
yeah,
that either.
Don't do that. Yeah.
But they're not timid in terms of being around people, but they don't want to be too close and they'll attack, right?
Just general good rule of thumb.
Leave wild animals alone.
Just leave wild animals alone.
That's
yes.
right.
Yes. If you want a pet cat,
That's different.
get a pet cat.
That's right.
And you're welcome to hold the kitties.
The
Yeah.
cat. That's
but,
right.
But don't hold the elk.
No, they do not appreciate being cuddled.
Yeah.
So
right.
that's the
Yeah. Right.
So we don't do that. But you did that. Family from both sides.
Yeah. So actually, it was my parents and then my brother's family all came to Estes.
Yeah.
And then we were able to spend some time together there.
Right.
And then in Rocky Mountain National Park.
That's great.
And yeah, So we saw some elk. We did see a moose, which was nice. And,
You did?
Yeah. So, and a marmot. And
Oh, good old marmots. Yeah. Yeah.
See a marmot.
Yeah.
What? Chipmunks.
Yep, of
few
course.
Other,
Yep.
A few other things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
All good.
But all super fun. It was a really nice trip.
When I was in
and-
Wisconsin, I was on the lookout for a stray moose. They're not indigenous to northern Wisconsin, but occasionally one will wander in from the north.
Wander in, right? I
And
know you
so-
sent pictures. At
Yeah,
times of,
and
or
so-
maybe somebody nearby. Sent you
Nearby
pictures.
did, not far, just down the road from us. And so I was on the lookout just in case that moose was still around, but
Right.
no meese sightings this time. So
no, they also do not like being cuddled.
no, they do not. They do not. So I'm glad you're back.
Yes, no, it's really good to be back. But it was a really great trip, and super fun with all the. So my brother has 4 little boys, and I have 2 little boys. About to have 3. So
About to have 3.
my parents are going to have just all grand boys.
Boys.
Which is pretty wild, but yeah, just a spectacular trip. Fun to get the kids. We found little hikes for everybody. You can get some super spectacular stuff by just going a little bit, and then for some of the older ones, I mean, they're all elementary
Yeah.
age, but like some of the
For the
third,
more
fourth,
experienced
and-
hikers in the
third, fourth, and
family.
fifth graders, yeah, got up some super fun stuff. So.
That's great. And I'm sure some great views.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. I never made it into the national park.
I mean, there's so much to do, regardless.
Right.
Everywhere, because I'd been to Estes one other time, but it was just kind of like they were doing a retreat, and you stay in Estes, and then had to go right back, and so it was nice to go explore the park a little bit.
Fun. Were you at a place where you had to cook your own meals, or did you guys go out? What did you do?
We did a little bit of both. So went out to eat a little bit, and then we actually were able to make some meals most every
So you had a
evening.
kitchenette or a kitchen, and that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That's really great.
So,
Very nice. So you step back into a little bit of break in the weather, which 106 is kind of a break right now, even though that's like 3 degrees over the average. You step back into a break because while you were gone, it wasn't as hot as while I was gone, but it was 109, 110, 111 almost the entire time you were gone.
yeah.
And from 120, we'll take it.
Yeah.
And yet
sure.
106 feels just like really good when you are used to 112, right?
At one point people were saying, like, once you hit above 100 and 110, it doesn't even matter
Doesn't
anymore.
matter
whatever.
anymore.
But by the end of the summer, you feel like you're kind of a heat snob. You can tell the difference.
You can tell the
between
difference.
120, 115, 110. Like, there's a big difference in there.
Well, I stepped outside this morning when it was about 81 this morning.
Yeah.
Because I went over to the gym in my neighborhood and just walk. It's not more than a block from our house, and walk out at 7 a.m. and it's 81, and there was a slight breeze, and I'm like, is that a chill in the air
Oh.
at 81?
How about
like, what is
that?
that,
Look at this.
right?
Look at this.
So yeah, so
So-
I just, and I looked at the long range forecast, and it's we're going to be about that for the next 10 days. So I'll take 106 for the next 10 days because the
That's better
alternative.
than 120.
Amen to that. So when you left, we were kind of in a place where we were saying that the end of July last weekend was going to be the end of KCLC. Like we were going to wrap this up.
Yes, it's kind of been you had an outline out
Yeah.
months ago,
Yep.
and kind
But
of had this kind
we're-
of penciling out, and these are the ones.
But we're doing an encore performance this
which
weekend.
I think has happened last year too.
It did. It did. So
had an encore performance.
we're doing an encore performance of a new song, but we're extending it by 1 week. It's like held over like a show. We're
Yes.
holding it over 1 week. And this may not be everybody's favorite song, but for me, it falls into that category because it was from 1985, right in the middle of my teen years. that this song was not only really popular, but it was a song that almost everybody from every age group would have heard. So this is a big one. This is like a big song. Even if you're like, well, I stopped listening to pop music in the 60s, you would know this song.
Okay.
So I'm
Okay.
excited. I've wanted
So that's
to do
coming
this
up
one.
this weekend.
This weekend. I've wanted to do it for a
Yes.
couple of years, and now we're...
And I'm not responsible for putting the music end of it together, but
No.
I think it takes some doing on our
Yes.
music staff
It does.
to make this
it
one
does.
work.
They might be
Yes.
glad to be done with the sermon series. Because I keep saying, well, what about this and what about that? And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, I was like, well, you know, got ideas, you know.
They also do a wonderful job, and I'm so thankful that they at least seem to love it.
That they appear to love it, so that's all I want. And I mean, whatever's deep in their heart, that's their own business. But
That
as long
is
as
their-
they express to me that they love it,
They love it. Yeah.
That's all that matters to
Yeah.
me in a lot.
So
of ways.
yeah, I'm excited for this weekend
Yeah,
coming up.
yeah. And then we were talking about it, and after this weekend, we're going to go into the story of Ruth.
Yes.
And so that's
So,
another week
coming up in a
out,
couple
but
weeks.
but we've never preached on that story, and so we thought it might be a really nice thing to yet cover another story in the Bible that you may never hear, you know, a sermon series, or you may
And
not
give it
get
some
exposure.
space,
Give it some
right?
space
Like
to.
I know it's been mentioned briefly, maybe at a Lent service or in Bible study,
Right.
but not like to give it a couple weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like give it. Some
And that's
space
all
to
it
breathe.
needs. I mean, that's all
It's a,
it needs.
it's a short.
It's a 4-chapter book, and really looking at it, you know, 3 weeks will actually cover all the material of understanding what the trajectory of the story is. But also at the same time, there are themes within that will help us in our daily Christian walk. So we're gonna give it a go, and you know, I mean, even this year, think about some of the things we've done. We've already done an extended teaching on Joseph from the Old Testament. You know, we've done our mission statement. We were coming out of KCLC. We've already done a handful of really
No,
good
it's
things
always
this year.
wild, isn't it? Looking back at the previous year and to look at, we did all those.
So
yeah,
I made a
those-
change in my filing system. So everything, I don't keep paper files anymore. I do have paper, but everything's computerized. I finally, when I create a new file folder for a sermon series, this year I did it. I finally put the year. I was just doing the name of the sermon series or the book of the Bible or whatever, and that's it in this long, I mean, I've actually saved almost everything over the last 26 years.
Yeah.
And so this year I was like, I should really start adding the year into each of these file folders. So what I'm hoping for, without having to do too much work, is that in January when we do our annual congregational report, that be able to like show people, oh, and last year here were the sermon series that we
Yeah.
here are the things that we studied and learned about as a
it does
congregation.
stand out. Like
you
you
know,
realize, like, wow, that's
exactly.
all of those.
Oh, and don't forget, and I know I'll mention on Thursday, congregational meeting on Sunday, 12:30. What we're going to do is we will, obviously it'll be in person, but we will put it on our website only, and only for the time that we're doing the meeting. In other words, we're not going to leave it on the website because it's a meeting. Tune in for that or be present, and then that's how the
And
information.
it's just being transparent about the state of the church.
That's
it's
exactly
not
right.
no voting.
No, there's no agenda item other than me reviewing first 6 months of financials.
Okay.
And so where are we at as of the end of June? And it always takes two things to get to this point. You're like, well, it's August. Well, first of all, you got to wait about 3 weeks to close a month of finances. So by the time you get done with June, you're about the second to third week of July by the time you get those numbers. Plus, then we have to
Yep.
look at our calendar and say, when is there an open Sunday that something isn't going on that we can do
Yep.
a meeting? So why you're like, we're in the 8th month and this is only through month 6. Well, there's actually concrete reasons why. Usually this is about as soon as we can get it out and have that meeting. But
Yep.
but I look forward to doing that because, like as you said, transparency is the thing. You know,
Okay.
we're not playing the shell game on stuff. We're just like, here's what we know, you
Here's
know,
what we
and that's good too. So we're actually going to revisit today the song we did on Sunday. For the last couple of weeks, we've actually picked some other things and not gone back to the KCLC song. So, but today we're going to revisit it, and we're going to hear the 9:30 version, which also had the choir backing up both Dana, who was leading, and Robbie, who was in the supporter background vocals in
Yeah.
that this weekend. And there might be just a little bit more to say about the song and the biblical theme of God will be there for us. So with that, let's take a listen, and we'll talk about it when we get back.
You and I must make a pact. We must bring salvation back. Where there is love, I'll be there. I'll reach out my hand to you.
Isn't that a great song?
That is a great song. Yes.
You know, 1970, and you think to yourself, that song has staying power.
Yeah, right.
I mean, right? Like you hear it and you go, oh, that's a great song. If that was a new release, that'd still be like, oh, this is a great song. And yet we come back 54 years later and you hear it. And to think, and I said this on Sunday, that the Jackson 5's first 4 singles, in other words, their first 4 releases, were all #1 hits. Like,
That's wild. Yeah.
I mean, that is just a crazy popularity, which points to how good they are, right? I mean, to like release
Yeah.
your first single #1, your second single #1, your third, and then this one the 4th. So that says a little something.
It does say a little. Well, and the way you kind of presented it too, like sometimes it even makes the song even more meaningful when you have all these kind of bubblegum pop songs coming out,
And then
they're
it's something
super fun, and then something super deep too.
Yeah.
That just kind of adds to it,
It
right?
does.
It gives
It
it,
does.
it gives it more depth.
Yeah, and so we talked about this song, and I think sometime during the pandemic, we might have done this song, not on KCLC, but on a broadcast.
Yeah.
I-
Now that you say that, that sounds familiar.
I'm pretty sure we did it in a broadcast, and this
Huh.
goes back to, and if you weren't with us back then, in 2020, so I'd been here, 6 months, 7 months, and coming back from my 18-year exile, and so church closes down. One of the things I discovered when I got here, there is no air conditioning in the Crossroads.
Yeah.
There's just none. And I was like, well, we have air conditioning units. How come we don't have air conditioning? And, well, long story short, we didn't have air conditioning.
There's a longer story to go with that.
Yeah,
but-
that's a broadcast in itself. And so we needed to set up what you see here, and we didn't have this. And so the best we could do was set up in the Crossroads with the big TV behind us in the Crossroads over by the chapel. And so we set up a studio out there only because nobody was in the building. So we thought a big open space for breathing and not catching COVID, which, by the way, nobody ever spread COVID during our lockdown in the building. Many of us worked every day, and individuals would get COVID, but they never got it here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, we had occasionally somebody would go down, but they were like, oh, I must have gotten that at the grocery store because nobody else like ended up catching it in the, so we did really good. But anyways, we were in the Crossroads for until late that fall, until a gift from the Ruth Family Foundation allowed us to actually build this studio out down here in our basement. But we would pretend it wasn't hot. Do you remember that in the summer? We would just like pretend like it was air conditioned in there and not make mention of how warm it was in our mock studio at the time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But because when it started, I mean, we were only anticipating being down,
Couple of months.
not too long.
Maybe even
like,
just by Easter,
and
March to
that was like the
April.
longest we could imagine. Like,
Yeah.
could you imagine what if we're still down at Easter? I mean, that
Yeah,
was
right.
the big thing. But then, like, when it got to this point of like, so setting up in the Crossroads area, well, it started off that's fine. Like, it could be at the Crossroads because who needs AC? We're
Yeah, right.
going to be well back to normal by the time we need AC.
We need AC, right? Right. So as it turned out, then in 2021, what we ended up doing as we were kind of getting things back on the road again, we fundraised for Crossroads air conditioning. And I don't know if you remember that, but we got back together and said one of the things we have to take care of this summer is get that air conditioning. And our folks were generous in the same way that when our sound system blew up this year, can you believe that was this year?
Yeah.
People said, okay, let's do this. And then once we started using it, what happened was there were so many people who said, I didn't realize it could be cool in here. I just thought because of the skylights, it was just always hot in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, just we didn't have air conditioning. That's the only reason. So
that.
so I think we did. I'll Be There way back when we were in
The upstairs
in the
crossroads.
terrarium, which it felt like a terrarium back then, and made that happen. But you think about the promise. Let's get back to the Bible, right? Yeah. See, I haven't forgotten.
Yeah. Do you have to do that to yourself?
I did.
Over
I did once while you were gone. Got to get back to the Bible. Yeah. You have the video still,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Let's pull up the video here.
Hey guys, can we get back to the Bible?
Isn't that beautiful?
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
It feels like, and it's not, but you look 5 years younger in that video.
I know. I was very different back then.
I've been very hard on you. You've aged
This is worn on me.
disproportionately by being at Community Lutheran Church and hanging out with me.
Wow.
That was when Brian was in our youth program. I know, right? So I talked about some things on Sunday about God promising to be there, and there are things that are evident, like at the end of Matthew's gospel, Jesus says, I will be with you until the end of the age. Mm-hmm. And, I talked about that passage from Isaiah where the people of God are in a desert, spiritual desert, and God says, I'm bringing water. I'll be there, and I will quench your thirst, spiritually speaking. So I thought today, let's go to some more obscure places in Scripture. You're looking at that sheet, and you're like,
I am.
and you're going, Zephaniah.
Zephaniah.
Zephaniah. Yeah. So, and I did have one Titus while you were gone. So I did tap into Titus while you were gone. I thought, let's look at some more obscure places rather than the easy ones that maybe some of us already know. But there's this interesting place in Exodus where God and Moses are talking, and it's not necessarily one of these, like, it's not the burning bush, it's not the Ten Commandments, but there's this place where God is speaking to Moses about it's time to get moving. You've been settled in Midian for a while, it's time to get going. And because that's what happened. They left Egypt from slavery, crossed the Red Sea, and they went right to where Moses had lived for the last 40 years, Midian, with his in-laws, his wife and her parents. And God's like, it's about time to get moving. So this is what happens in Exodus 33. The Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Moses, being absolutely a regular human being, replies to him, not just, okay, Lord, whatever you say. He says, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. How will anyone know if you're pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other peoples on the face of the earth? So in that moment, God says, it's time to go, and I'm going to go with you. Don't worry about this. And Moses, there's a little bit of doubt in there, and he's like, well, if you're just saying this, if you're just blowing smoke here, Lord,
Moses never mind being honest about
Right?
his feelings. He just let it.
He's as real as it gets.
Yes.
So he's like, if this is lip service, we'll just stay here, right?
Yeah.
And even though he says, what else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people? God's already given the law. In other words, that's the distinguishing mark of the people of Israel, is the law. He's totally disregarded that. He's like, no, it's your presence, right? And so Lord God, he responds to Moses, he says, I'll do the very thing you have asked. In other words, don't worry. I said I was going with you. I'm not a practical joker. And he says, and the reason I'm going is I'm pleased with you. And I find this interesting, and I know you by name. So there's an intimacy.
That is a great verse. Yeah.
There's implied intimacy there.
Yeah, I'm pleased with you, and I know you by
And
name.
I know you by name. It wasn't just, don't worry, I'm going to be there. But he's like, no, I mean, if you wanted to paraphrase this, it's like, I like you, I'm pleased with you, and I really know you. I know your name. And I love the intimacy of the presence of God. Says a couple of things. One, the very first thing is, I'll give you rest. I'm going to go with you, but I'm also going to watch over you. I'm want to make sure you're not overstressed. Got to make sure that you're taken care of. And then at the end, he's like, look, I'm pleased with you. I like you. And I know you by name. So here's the application part of this. This is not just for the people of Israel. This is God's favor that rests on you too. Think about that, is that God knows you by name. God has called you and claimed you not as a group of people. Oh, well, you're a part of the CLC group. Okay, you're over here. It isn't like that. He knows you, and he wants to give you a break in your life, a place for rest. He is pleased with you because of his grace. And yes, he knows you by name, which tells you this. One day when we all take our last breath and we go to heaven, you're not going to get to the pearly gates and see St. Peter sitting at an accountant's desk with a big ledger. And he's not going to say, okay, so what's your name? You know, as if to look you up. Like that's in every bad joke about heaven.
Yes.
But it's not in reality. It's not like you're going to get there and like, do we know you? Do you have a reservation? God knows you by name, and you will be invited in.
Yeah.
And no,
He's pleased with you.
Yeah, there's no test in
no,
any
it's
of
just,
this.
it's that. Yeah.
It's
different
that
understanding.
plain.
Different
right?
way of looking at it, because so often we do see it the other way around. Is that, if God could see me, as if God can't. What if God could? God would be so displeased.
Disappointed. He does see you, and he still likes you, and he still knows you by name, and he's not holding these things against you. So that's kind of I mean, we know Exodus, but that's something we don't necessarily cover or talk a lot about. But now we're going to jump into a minor prophet, right? Zephaniah.
Zephaniah.
Yeah.
Yes. Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 17. So it says, "The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing."
That's pretty.
It's a beautiful verse for a book we don't read all that often.
That's right.
Really beautiful verse, yeah.
God is there. And we have sung a song over the years called, He is mighty to save.
Mm-hmm.
Savior, he can move the mountains. Our God is mighty to save. Well, here you go.
There you go.
God is mighty to save. In other words, the implication is he has your best interest in mind. He wants to save you from yourself, from your bad decisions. He wants to save you from other people's bad decisions. He wants to comfort you. He wants to take care of you. And not only that, but there's that whole God likes you thing again. He takes great delight in you.
Yeah.
And then when you're not feeling it, and you're having a bad day, having a bad week, having a bad season, he will quiet you with his love.
That's a great line right there, because sometimes the whole needing to be still and feeling like we can't, feeling like it's there's too much to worry about, too much pain in this world, too many problems, and then to just say we're going to quiet you even when we can't be still. Yeah, it's God's presence there.
And how often do we have a demeanor that may look normal, but there's something going on, and you're like churning it in your head. You're replaying a bad moment in your life, or you're thinking about what's going to happen if, and you're playing that movie, and you're disquieted here, like you're upset, and you may not show it out here, but like it's all going on internally, right?
Yeah.
I'm anxious about this, and what if this happens, and what if this, and then we hear the promise, he will quiet you with his love.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean the peace that surpasses understanding?
Yeah.
Right? And here's the trick to this, though. You can lock God out. We have free will. That doesn't mean he isn't present. But if you don't want to be quieted with his love and you shut that door, he's not necessarily going to break it down.
That's another interesting point, right? Because it's not about what we do. It's not about we have to bring something to the table to be loved. We're loved, but at the same time, like as with any kind of love, like we can shut the door.
We can shut
That
the door.
love's for us, and
Yep.
and we can shut the door on it.
That's right.
We can doubt it. We can.
So here's that nuance. So it's really subtle. You can be loved and yet block that love. That doesn't mean you're not being loved. It just means you're not letting it penetrate your heart, right? So the love is still there, but if you slam the door on it, it means that love is still on the other side of the door. But if you don't want to be quieted, 'cause you're so worked up, God's like, okay, when you are ready
Yeah.
to receive the love that's already there, I'll be ready. I'll be there, right?
I'll be there.
But there is a human propensity when we're worked up to shut out reason, to shut out logic, to shut out calm and loving thoughts and feelings because we just want to magnify the other thing. It's the big thing. It's so bad, right?
Yeah.
And we don't take time to go, what if there's a third option? What if there is a love that can settle my heart and that I'm open to that love to settle my heart so that maybe I can see things from a new perspective? So love is always there, but the question is, do we let that love in? Right? And I also love, he will rejoice over you with singing. In other words, we talked about this last week. We talked about how God can use music to bring peace.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
And I think about God wanting to put rejoice, joy into you, and one of the best places to do that is with music.
Music. Sure it is.
And in that
yeah.
music, I mean, why do we employ music in church? It gives a message, mind you, but there is something that music does that words alone can't.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we do our KCLC sermon series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something it's a part of people from, you got to flip on the radio station. There's meaning in that.
That's
and
right.
People are searching for something.
And people have favorite songs because they're associated with a time in their life, something going on in their life, or those lyrics resonate with a mindset that you have in that moment. And so you always hold on to it. So in this understanding of he'll rejoice over you with singing, part of this is understanding that, you may not necessarily hear the choirs of angels in heaven singing because of where you are at, but God will bring earthly music in which to bring a message to you
Yeah.
and bring a calm to you, right? Because I know people want to go, well, I've never heard God sing. I've never heard angels sing. Well, yeah, okay. I'll give you that. Neither have I.
If you're going to wait for God to compose a special
Song
song just
for
for
you.
you,
You might be waiting.
yeah, think
Yeah.
outside a
Yeah.
little bit more.
Yeah. Remember, God uses ordinary things and ordinary people to do extraordinary things. That applies to music too. So the gift of music happens where God might be rejoicing over you over a song or a hymn that we're hearing or singing in church, and that's this right here, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, one last one for you. Hebrews 11, and this one might be the most familiar out of all of them, but maybe not. Hebrews 11:6. The author writes, he says, without faith, it is impossible to please God. Because anyone who comes to God must believe that he exists, and then that God rewards those who earnestly seek him. So, you think about the presence of God. And I know it seems counterintuitive, but there are people who are agnostic or atheist who crave a reassurance that there's a God in this world. Because their life is chaotic. And sometimes we are complicated people where we'll say one thing, but deep in our hearts, we wished it was something else.
Yeah. What we were talking about with being, needed to be quieted with God's love.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And Paul's just pointing out, or not Paul, but whoever wrote this was pointing out, it could be Paul, it could be any number of folks,
Sure could.
was pointing out, like, if you want to be in the presence of God, the place it begins is trust. Even if you're unsure. And that's the thing, is like, you're like, you can say this, literally, God can handle it. God, I'm not sure you exist, but I'm just going to believe. I'm just going to trust that you're there, even though I have no proof, and I'm not even sure it's real. But you know what? I'm just going to trust that you're there.
And I love that the Bible is filled with all kinds of those examples.
You
And
know?
it's not filled with a bunch of people who says, look at this person did it perfect.
Yeah.
Why aren't you like that? That person did it perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we could actually come to God and express our doubts about him. It doesn't hold it against us, and actually welcomes that.
Yeah.
You know, I believe, help me overcome my unbelief. The guy whose son needed healing, and the guy owns the paradox that we wrestle with in this life. For, you know, this is the paradox of humanity. So thousands of years, I believe, or I want to believe, but help me in my unbelief, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus didn't say, well, that's not enough. He didn't say, okay, we're moving on because you didn't say the right words, and you didn't say please either. He didn't do that.
Right.
He acknowledged where that guy was at, and by healing his son, helped him overcome his unbelief. So you can go to God with the same thing. If you're like, I'm craving the gifts that God offers, you know, peace, joy, love, patience, kindness, gentleness, faith, self-control. You can just go to God and say, I'm not so sure, but I want it. And then wait for that response. Just wait and see what happens. Wait to see what unfolds. And so he's just pointing out, it's like, if you want to come close to God, step one in that is to have faith in that. Even if it is a struggle. In other words, it's not a litmus test. Well, I don't have it, so therefore I can't have it, right? I don't have faith, so therefore I'm out. It's not that at all. God is the giver of faith. It's a gift. So if you ask for the gift, it will be given. And then it can be nurtured and grown and even fan the flame a little bit to grow that. Because God doesn't want to leave us as we are. He loves us just as we are, but he doesn't want to leave us in that same place, right?
That's the thing. Yeah. I think
And-
that's an important realization.
And I've said this before, but like, I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I have been on a path. And God doesn't love me any more today than he did the day I was born. But I'm in a different place because God wants to grow me. And so you got to start somewhere. So if you're like, I'm not really sure, but I really like the feeling at church and I like our community and I like the music, but I'm not sure about the rest of it, just go to God and tell him that. He already knows. So you can just go to him and say, I'm not where I need to be, but I want to be there. Help me out. Help a guy out. And that is where his presence is, you know. And he rewards those who earnestly seek him, which is as if to say, God will show up in your life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
one of the things that where you see these gifts happen is, I always tell people when they've lost someone they've loved, you know, a recent death. Now this becomes a part of, because of experience, I say, now here's the thing. Look for the signs that God is telling you this person is taken care of. Because I have had so many people tell me over the years, this thing happened, or I saw this thing, or this moment, and then I knew this person was fine. This person, you know, God took care of them.
Sometimes they come to us asking permission. Is that okay?
Is that okay? Right. And so anymore, when somebody calls me or we're meeting with somebody somebody's died, one of the pieces of advice I give is be open to the signs that God's going to tell you they're taken care of. And that's a part of this earnestly seeking God, and he will reward you. God will give you the signs. Yeah. But it's not just that. It's in other places too. So as much as I'd love a dramatic piano piece to end today,
Not today.
it's not going to happen today. Philip is, in quotes, out of the office.
Out of the office.
So we're going to have kind of an abrupt ending today.
Hard
And-
ending today on
and
a
Thursday
Tuesday.
and Thursday too, for that matter. But he is, believe it or not, he is. I heard he is camping. I never pictured Philip as a camper.
Happy camper.
Yeah, well, we'll find out.
We'll find out. Yes. Yes.
So, anyways, we're glad you joined us today. Bible study is a week from Wednesday, so it's not tomorrow because tomorrow's the last day of the month. So,
fifth.
so
Yeah, fifth
it'll
Wednesday.
be next week. So we hope that whatever you're doing, you have a pleasant day. But then you'll join us on Thursday as we look at one other song from this past weekend that was really a beautiful song,
Yeah.
and it is a Keith Thompson original too. So we're gonna hear a Keith Thompson original on Thursday. So we hope you can come back and join us. Anyways, take care. God bless you. We love you, and we hope you have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.